Today's networks are changing fast, and employees, devices, and infrastructures are more distributed than ever. Gigamon Threat Insight is a cloud-native, high-velocity network detection and response solution that's purpose-built to enable you to get in front of this transformation. Discover hidden network threats, automate security investigations, and optimize security workflows to stay a step ahead of attackers with Gigamon Threat Insight. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Gigamon. Do you worry about ransomware, data breaches, reputation damage, especially from phishing attacks, on employees working from home? The facts are, top cloud security tools have a 15% failure rate. 51% of phishing is social media based. Pixum knows because Pixum detects and stops breaches at point of click. Pixum's AI real-time solution detects actual fraud happening in a browser and stops it. Know your real security gaps. Get a phishing actualization test free at securityweekly.com/Pixum. That's PIXM. Welcome back, everyone, to Security Weekly's live Black Hat 2021 coverage, coming to you from G Unit Studios in Rhode Island, where I think we just passed our fire inspection, which is that's important. I'm, of course, your host, Paul Asadori, and joining me for this micro interview is Carolin Solskär, the community manager for Detectify Crowdsource. Carolin, welcome.
Thank you.
Our topic for today, Carolin, is automating hacker knowledge, but I want to learn a little bit about Detectify's kind of crowdsourced. Is it a bug bounty program? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, good question. It's kind of a bug bounty program, you could say. So shortly, just Detectify, we have a scanner that scans our customers' web pages for vulnerabilities. And in order for us to keep that scanner up to date, we need to all the time add more vulnerabilities, and that is why we use ethical hackers. So we have a community that is called Detectify Crowdsource, where we have, soon 400 handpicked ethical hackers that can submit vulnerabilities to us. And then we take those vulnerabilities and we build them into our scanner. And then when the scanner gets hits on those vulnerabilities, the hacker gets paid. So yes, it's a bug bounty program, but we work a little bit differently, where we instead focus on commonly used technologies that affects a lot of customers instead of just hacking one customer at a time.
So how specific is the vulnerability? Let's say I'm a vulnerability researcher, and do I submit a vulnerability in a very specific product, or can it be kind of a more generic vulnerability that crosses multiple products?
So it's specific technologies, as for example WordPress, and then it's a vulnerability in one version of WordPress. So all our hackers has access to this information, so they can see what technologies will usually generate a lot of hits based on that. A lot of our customers are using those technologies and those specific versions of those technologies. But you can also send in other stuff as well. But the more common use it is, the more hits it will get. So the more money you will get.
I see. So it behooves me to find a vulnerability in a common product, such as a WordPress or popular WordPress plugin, because more customers are going to be using that.
Yeah, exactly. And we also have like a list of stuff that we mostly accept. And then, of course, we don't accept anything. It has to be something that our customers actually are using. And so, but yeah,
now,
the more the better.
Does it have to be a previously, like, what if the vulnerability has been previously disclosed? Like, how do you check it? Does it have to be a 0 day, basically?
No, it hasn't have to be a 0 day. We also accept CVEs. So all that we need is that it's something that we haven't checked for before.
Okay.
So, so you can submit proof of concepts even for things that already exist.
And now, do I have to kind of like write the detection rule for the Detectify platform in order to submit it?
No, you just write the proof of concept, and then we do the rest.
Okay. So, yeah, that's good. I always like to leave that to the folks that do that development on a regular basis, because like I used to work for a vulnerability management company, and like I tried my hand at writing, we called them plugins. And, people that do that every day, they would come up with a much better, more robust, more accurate kind of style check.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, now we're also trying out to get the hackers to build some of the stuff themselves, which so far has gone good, but I mean, it's still like a level of we still need to do some of the stuff ourselves because it doesn't really make sense for someone to do all of the work. But we're trying out a lot of different stuff. But the foundation is that we do all of the boring stuff and they do all of the fun stuff, which is finding the vulnerabilities.
Right. Yeah, no, that's really awesome. So as long as it's new to you in terms of a proof of concept, you'll go ahead and write the plugin, or if I submit a proof of concept plugin, you'll go ahead and massage that however you see fit to get it, ready for production. I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's correct.
That's pretty awesome. So you said you had about 400 people, approaching 400 people in the program. Do you have to be selected, or can I apply? How do I apply to be in the program?
So anyone can apply to be a member, and then you do a test and also, write some stuff about yourself. Our security researcher will go through your application, and then if you get accepted, you will get invited. So anyone who wants to can apply.
So I have to take a test, or do I have to hack into some web app and have findings?
Yeah, exactly. It's not a written test. It's you has to hack and write what you found, and then based on that we can both see, hope that we can see your technical level as well as your what do you call it? How you approach the challenge, so to say.
Sure. That's really cool. So I like that level of validation. Although I haven't taken the test, so. Maybe I will just to make sure that I'm not lame, that I still have my skills, hopefully. Do you disclose? So I guess if it's already been disclosed to the vendor, you don't have to worry about this. But if you run into a situation where someone's submitted something that has not been disclosed to either the vendor or the open source project that happens to have the vulnerability.
Yeah, of course. Then we treat it as any company would hopefully treat a 0 days. So we report it to the company and wait for the 5 days until we do anything with it. Awesome.
And so does it matter the type of vulnerability, like whether it's cross-site scripting versus remote file upload? Like basically, are they all paid equally?
They are all paid equally, but it depends on the severity level. So when someone submits something and we validate it and say that yes, this is the type of submission we want, then we decide if it's critical, a high, a medium, or low severity on it, and then you get paid based on that. But then it can also differ a little bit based on the technology and so on. But all of those things you can find, like if you are a member, you can find all of that and actually count on, okay, if I submit this specific vulnerability based on the amount of customers using it and based on the severity I think it will get, I will probably get this amount of money.
Severity is subjective. I'm sure you have a team that is probably debating, what the severity should be, right?
Yes. We have.
It's certainly because there are so many things, especially when we're talking. Well, I mean, if you're talking just about the vulnerability, right? But how that can be presented in the application could be two totally different things. So, but you're looking at obviously just the vulnerability.
Yes, exactly.
So, what are some of your more popular ones? Like who's getting paid? I don't need their names, right? But like, are there people getting paid like more than others because they've disclosed one of the vulnerabilities that are most commonly found by your customer base?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's we have a leaderboard where we show which one has the highest score, which I mean is the people who has gotten paid the most in one way. It is. I know that everybody has different approaches until like how they find the right type of vulnerabilities. But some are really like sitting and waiting for a new CV to come out and just send it in as fast as they can.
Sure.
But we have some people who are really successful in our network, and it's really fun to see how they all approach getting the right type of vulnerabilities in very different ways.
Yeah, because they can't just submit the CVE in most cases. They have to develop a proof of concept in order for you to base that check off of, right? So there's some technical skill involved. You can't just say, oh, look, a new CVE came out. Let me just send it to Detectify.
Oh, no, of course. You have to have a technical skill. And that is also why we have an application process, because we believe that in order to be able to actually be successful at our platform, you have to be at a certain technical level. So that is why we want to have it the way we have it, so that we know that people who are in our platform, if they want to be successful, they can be.
Yeah, you have to be able to weaponize the vulnerability. And that's not always easy when a new CVE comes out for a particular web application or framework. And do you also take submissions for web servers in addition to web applications and, like JavaScript applications and things like that? Like what's the scope of what, proof of concepts can be submitted?
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. I have to get back to you on that question.
Yeah, sure. I mean, because when you look at web app scanners, they'll oftentimes find vulnerabilities in the web server, right? That's just passing traffic to the web application. So I was just curious if that was in scope. Yeah, if you want to ask someone in your team, I'm curious on that as well. So how has the program been going? Like, is this an official announcement that you're making this week for Black Hat, or like, are you looking to add a bunch more people on now that you've kind of proven that this model works for you?
Yeah, I mean, we have been having this crowdsourced community for quite a while. We started it around 2016, actually, but then it was really small, and then it's been slowly growing since. And this year, we have been really starting to focus more on growth and actually getting more members in. And what we realized when we started that process was that there is a lot of hackers who don't know about Detectify crowdsource, or who believe that you actually just have to get the secret invite in some way and don't realize that anyone can apply. So the invite only is more of you apply, and then we invite those who pass our challenge. So for us, it's more to just get the word out that we are here, and we are really excited to get more skilled and great hackers in our network.
Are you most likely attracting people who are participating in other bug bounty programs? Because I know, like, if I was going to do this program, I'd likely be in other bug bounties, using what I'm learning from those other bug bounties and also submitting those to Detectify crowdsource. Do you find that to be true?
In some cases, yes. I mean, a lot of the hackers in our community are at other bug bounty platforms as well. But since we differ quite a lot in what type of vulnerabilities we accept, and that I'm not a hacker myself, but what I realized when I talk to a lot of our hackers is that you have to switch your mindset a bit when you're a hacker at Detectify crowdsource, because you have to look on the vulnerabilities at a little different way. So I would say that maybe 70% are also members of other bug bounty platforms, but the rest is not. They just found Detectify crowdsource, and maybe they worked as pen testers or just really into hacking, but haven't really got realized that bug bounty is an option. So or they heard about Detectify crowdsource and realized, oh, this was for me, but they are not members of other.
From like an economics perspective, have you found that it works out for you? Like, if you were to, I know it's, well, first hard to build out a research team to find talented people and then employ them full time that would normally be writing all of these checks, right? And then you have to pay them their salaries and all that stuff. Whereas if you crowdsource it, like, economically, is it working out that, bug bounty hunters are getting paid, and also you're saving some by not having to employ, if you could employ that many people full time, right? Finding people to do this research is really hard.
Yeah, I mean, in a dream world, we would hire everyone.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's both that, of course, from an economical perspective, it's like good to not hire everyone, but also that what I really think is like the best thing with this is that everybody in our crowdsourced community are so different. Yeah, they are coming from different backgrounds. They are different ages. Some are students, some are working. Like, they do all of these different things, which make them, like, together, what they collect and give us is fantastic. So if let's say that they would be 20 like hired people, like those 20 hired people I don't think they would contribute in the same way, because it's like the power of the crowd, that there are so many, so different, and all have their different perspective. And I think that's the secret sauce.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, because you can only be diversified with 20 people, like 20 seats on the bench, right? But now you've got 400. Some of those 400, I mean, may have a background in developing in that particular framework. Others may not have a development background, which I often find is of value as well, right? Sometimes you think about things differently when you're a developer, and that can help or hurt you when you're discovering vulnerabilities and reporting them. So I agree that diversity is really cool, and hopefully you're getting some really quality, checks from it and growing your database.
Yeah, we do.
That's awesome. Anything else you want to convey to our audience, Carolin, about this program?
No, honestly, I just think that what we do is a bit different from other bug bounty platforms. So if you're interested, I just apply, because it's a different way of looking at it, and it's also a great way to get paid over time, because with us you get paid every time you get a hit, which makes it like you can earn money on one vulnerability you submitted 2 years ago and still get hits on it. So it's a great way to get like money over time instead. So if you're interested, apply or reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever, and I can tell you more. We're really excited to grow the community and get even more skillful hackers.
Well, also it's a great benefit too that if you're participating in this program, you want more people to use Detectify, so more people find your vulnerabilities, right? That's
exactly.
Another great. Yeah. But it's a great symbiotic relationship too, right? Because it helps Detectify and it helps the researchers as well, and it helps the customers because they're finding more vulnerabilities across their products and platforms. So
exactly.
Awesome job, Carolin. Thank you so much for appearing on Security Weekly.
Thank you. Bye.
As I said, this segment was sponsored by Detectify. You can find out more by visiting securityweekly.com/Detectify. And you have to do a little digging there. If you do some digging, you can find the application to join the crowdsource program. Carolin, thank you again.
Thank you.
Welcome to Black Hat 2021 Virtual Hacker Summer Camp, live with Security Weekly. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and this is the first micro interview we have today. Joining me is TJ Null, Community Manager at Offensive Security. Welcome to Security Weekly, TJ.
Thanks, TJ. Thanks, Adrian. It's really great to have me here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited about this one. I was just off camera, off air, was saying this could easily be an hour because we there's some similarities in our background and some stuff that isn't similar, and I've got a bunch of questions for you. But yeah, generally, we're going to be talking about the importance of community and learning in InfoSec, some career stuff. And I do some mentoring, so this is huge for me because the way I came up is not the way other people are coming up in security these days. It's very, very different from what I remember, how I got into it 20 years ago, which was from IT was the most common way. Now you've got people coming straight in from school, working in SOCs like you did, TJ.
Yeah. So for me, really, starting out, getting into high school was, starting with computer tech classes was where I got into it. I mean, I guess, Adrian, for you, back in the day, it was always going through forums or IRC channels, right? And nowadays, it's really changed for a lot of people who want to get into this field where, you could be able to get an internship, you could be able to get your certs, right? And I mean, I've even seen some, students that come out with their certs right out of high school, either with having an OSCP or even getting, some of the other fundamental certs that we have in this field.
Yeah, it's massive having those skills coming straight out of high school. I can't imagine. Yeah, it was mostly like zines and, as you said, IRC, spend some time there, forums and things like that, email even. But yeah, I mean, talking about certifications, you spent a lot of time with the OSCP, both training for it, and helping other people study up for it. How important is that particular certification to the field? And is there anything else out there really like it? Does he even have any competition these days?
That's a very good question. So for me, preparing for the OSCP, I spent 4 years of my time just dedicatedly trying to prepare for it. I wanted to get comfortable learning some of the skills that was needed, and also some of the tools and the different techniques that the course had talked about. So going through a lot of that stuff really gave me an idea of, how some of the tools work, right? And how to be able to use some of the different syntaxes for them, and also the techniques that they talked about in the course. And there was a lot of open source material that I'd find, and also, challenges like Over the Wire, right, with Bandit and Natus, that really kind of helped me get started to learn more about, Linux or different web apps, which I think was really great. And now looking at it, with OSCP, I still think OSCP is still the number one leading cert, just trying to get started into pen testing, right, or trying to get a career in pen testing. There's other competitors that are out there in this world, but I think what really makes OffSec unique is a lot of the systems that they have in their lab environment are really real world, that you get to experience the practical applications that you go through. And seeing in the new version of the PWK, with the amount of material that they put in and going through a lot more chapters, I wish I went through that one instead of the previous version that I had.
Yeah. I was definitely for a long time diehard. No, security is not an entry level field. You can't go straight in. You've got to have this huge foundation. You got to go work as a sysadmin or a network engineer or something like that. Get this big foundation of experience first. I actually remember training some pen testers where they'd be like, okay, I got into a database. Now what? They didn't know any SQL or anything like that. And that kind of reinforced that belief I had for a long time. But definitely willing to admit that things have changed and I'm wrong on that front. How do you feel about, whether it's necessary to have IT experience before getting into security versus going straight in? Are folks going straight in disadvantaged?
I think a lot of people who are trying to go straight into pen testing are at a disadvantage, because the big things that we need to know being a pen tester, right? We need to have the prerequisites of like networking fundamentals, right? Or having some knowledge of actually how to program. And also to mention having understanding of different operating systems. For me, right, I didn't start as a pen tester coming out. I started working in IT, then I was a sysadmin. And then building that up, I wanted to get into the blue team side first, just to understand, how defenders and inter-response employees would actually go through and try to look at some of the incidents or see what hackers do. That way I was able then to build my skills to become a pen tester and understand what are defenders looking for, right? So I think I shouldn't say I think, right? I encourage people who are getting in this field to start going through the fundamentals, but also to start a job in IT, have a job as a being a sysadmin. Those are really going to be great places for you to learn stuff instead of going straight into being a pen tester. Because when you try to go straight into the pen testing field, right, and become that pen tester, you're not really going to have an understanding of some of the stuff that sysadmins have to deal with, or IT people have had to deal with, even network engineers. So,
yeah, I think there's an appreciation you get, and how I got into IT actually is I registered a domain, and it was right when broadband came out. We were all moving from dial-up, so I had this always on, massive bandwidth of 1.5 megabits per second DSL line coming into my apartment. And I actually ran my own website and my own email server off my broadband at home, which probably sounds insane today. But, you learn a lot of those stresses about, keeping things up and running, and when you're in the pen testing side, you can relate. You're like, oh, yeah, I've made that mistake before. I know what to check for because I've been there and I've made those mistakes. And on the other side, you can exploit them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, before I started becoming a pen tester, I actually had my own home lab set up. So when I worked at the college as a sysadmin, our goal was basically to build our own cyber lab because we were going to start teaching students cybersecurity. And one of the really cool things about it was that I got to learn about, Active Directory services, spinning up, VMware ESXi and running my own vSphere manager system as well, too, to manage all the different servers that I had with all the virtual machines running. And then started getting to the network side, right? Setting up your own firewalls, having stuff connected into separate subnetworks, right? Trying to build all that stuff out, I think was a huge benefit for me. And I think that's something, that people need to learn. And there's a lot more opportunities now that people can start building out their own labs, whether it's being on site, trying to get that old piece of hardware, right, and bringing it back to life, or even trying to spin some stuff up in the cloud as well, too, with some of the cloud platforms we have out today.
Yeah, there's free tiers out there, and you can take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
So you went beyond certifications. You actually have a degree in cybersecurity. Is that something you would recommend for most folks? How do you feel about, kind of the traditional career or, secondary education path? Was it worth it? Regrets?
So for me, I got my associates, I have my bachelor's, and I have a master's certificate right now. And I think for me, having a bachelor's and associates really did help. It did give me the career that I'm in, but that's how I look at it. At most, is just it was a piece of paper in the end. A lot of the courses that I went through in my undergrad degree really didn't teach me some of the technical stuff or trying to apply a lot of the hands-on stuff that I wanted to learn. So a lot of the time when I was taking my classes and going through the material in those classes, I was also taking free time out of myself to start learning more about different operating systems, right? Spending more time in Kali Linux, and also going through some of the other books that they didn't teach about as well too in those courses. And we still have that today in the education industry, right, for cybersecurity, where people are still teaching by the books. And I mean, like, we're teaching like with old books still that we have. No one's teaching up new stuff. No one's going through and actually starting to learn with, how to be able to build their own virtual machines or customize their own network infrastructure or environments. We don't really have that. Most of the time, when I was at uni, it was basically writing research papers, and they would be like 10 to 15 papers, going over, some of the NIST frameworks, right? And that was really it. I didn't actually get to spend time, building like, a full entire infrastructure or lab environment that I wish I could have done. But
maybe you got some writing chops that could be important when you're a pen tester, right?
Oh yeah, the writing chops, of course. You have to always write reports, right? And you have to make sure that the style that you're writing is also good, and also to make sure that a non-technical person who is going to be reading your report understands what you're doing. So I did get a little bit of benefit out of that, I would say, but overall, though, like I said, it had its ups and downs in the end. This having the degree was great. Like I said, it got me through the career. Do I wish I could have learned more from my professors and also through the courses I was in? Yeah, absolutely. And try to be more hands-on. And that's what I would like to see continue, with other universities. And that's what I try to challenge with, some of the universities that are starting their own cybersecurity program.
So as a community manager, could you explain a little bit about your role for offensive security and what you do in that role?
Yeah, absolutely. So being the community manager for offensive security allows me to try to make a balance where I try to help out any students that have any issues with OffSec or try to make any type of clarifications. And the biggest thing for me is mentoring. And I try to find ways where I can try to get anything that's on security or InfoSec, in the offensive security side, right, of cyber, and try to help explain that better for people who are getting started in this field, or want to have a better understanding of what OffSec has to offer, whether it's courses, right, the open source tools, right, and resources we offer as well, too. So those are my big things that I try to do, running a community for OffSec and also trying to build relationships with people as well, too, that want to get in this field.
Right. So you also seem like you're really big into competitions, into Ctfs. Is that also something you recommend for people trying to get into InfoSec? I guess phrased another way, does getting better at Ctfs make you better at InfoSec, or does it just make you better at Ctfs?
That's a really good question. So my free time when I was in uni, right, was actually doing cyber competitions a lot. And one of the big competitions that was always big for me was CCDC. So the Cyber College Gate Defense Competition that was ran. And getting to actually experience full-time pen testers and red teamers go up against us and trying to harden the systems as a blue teamer really was a big thing for me. I still compete from time to time, just seeing what people have when challenges they create, and also to get an understanding of why were they created, because then I can learn about certain tools that I can go ahead and use, to apply in my real world practices of what I do. So I do see a very huge benefit of getting into Ctfs, doing these cyber competitions. Although a lot of people do say that, a lot of stuff that you learn from Ctfs may not apply to real world, and it's true. But at the same time, you can use the stuff that you learned to be able to teach others about some of the certain tools you go through or certain things that you see in these Ctfs. I wish there's only one thing I wish better is that CTFs would be able to share, some of the challenges and the write-ups that go with them, so that other ways, people can learn about these challenges. And then for people who are creating challenges for CTFs to help mentor and educate, students that want to get into cyber, also learn to maybe create their own challenges, using some of the stuff that they have learned from these challenges that other CTF vendors or, competitors, right, host and learn.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the blue team style CTFs, and it's a total coincidence that I'm wearing my OpenSoc t-shirt today from DEF CON last year. Had a team that competed in that, and yeah, I mean, those are pretty realistic scenarios they put together, and though they're using open source tools for it, the process is very similar. Having to learn those query languages, how to find logs and events and alerts. And find IOCs and stuff like that, dig them out of packet captures and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So also open source. I don't know how much you use Kali in the community stuff you do, but just curious how you'd answer this question. What is it you love most about open source software? But then also, what's your biggest pet peeve when trying out what looks like an exciting new open source project for the first time, but maybe you run into some issues?
Ooh, that's a good question. I like to use open source tools a lot because I can because then I can look at what that developer or person who's contributing to the code for that certain project, right, is doing. And what's really nice about it is that, I don't have to look at closed source projects, right? Or have to, go through some of the battles that we have using certain software. If there's something I could take from that project, right, and implement it into Kali and test it and run it, I could be able to do that then, which is nice. And, the other thing about it too is that, seeing so many people in our field, right, create so many amazing tools that have really helped us out, with a lot of work that we do in the field. And so with Kali Linux being started as, a big project where, trying to grab all of these pen testing tools, red team tools, right, any type of other security tools, that come together, so that other people, can just download an ISO, right, run the operating system, and their tools and the suite that they need are there, I think is really great. And the Kali team does a really great job with trying to be open with the community about what certain tools are in there, right? They also provide so much documentation on what you can do with Kali Linux as well too. And to see a lot of, those tools come together that people have written, right? It can be a rewarding thing, for some people to see that, oh my God, my tool's in Kali. This is really cool that other people can use this, right? There are some hurdles that we go through, trying to use some certain tools, some certain tools need, certain packages, right, that depend on it. And there could be old packages that might not work, right? And can be a pain trying to get some of those packages or try to find some of them to try to make their tools work, which is another big thing. And I don't think, and then, another issue that comes to my mind is that a lot of people really don't get a lot of credit, so I'm going to call out, tool contributors and developers that, release their open source tools. They don't really get a lot of credit from the community, because a lot of companies, right, and a lot of pen testers and, even blue teamers, right, use their tools, but no one really likes to give back at certain points. I mean, you have a few people that will, right, to contribute, right, add some stuff to it. But most of the community that I've seen, at least, hasn't really shared much information or details or documentation or what they could do to help try to improve, some of the main tools that are out there. That's why I like to see, people like Bytebleeder, for instance, right? When he started Porchetta Industries, he started to go ahead and make, TrackMap and some of his other tools become sponsorware tools now, where people can actually be able to get the latest releases, but by also, giving some like the type of money, right, or funding, to be able to help, contribute to his work, because it's a lot of free time that he puts in to build and make those tools.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. We've seen open source projects over the years struggle with that challenge. Sometimes maintainers just get burnt out and call it quits. And sometimes somebody will pick it up and fork it, and sometimes not. Mm-hmm. So one last question for you, a bit of a non sequitur. what is it about Al Simmons that attracts you to his character? Does he embody the hacker mindset, or is he just a cool comic book character?
I am a huge fan of Spawn. I really like the work that Tom McFarlane has done with the comic book series. And a lot of the stuff that is in the stories, like some of the evil villains, characters, and Al Simmons, right, being the main character of Spawn, right, is implemented in my tools and my tradecraft. So there's some certain people that I know in this world that like to, use Star Wars, right, or they'll use Star Trek, or they'll use like Lord of the Rings, right, as some of their stuff. So Spawn is the reason why that all my tooling or my techniques I use is based off the stuff in that comic book itself. So you may see my Al Simmons user basically running on Windows environments sometimes when I'm doing pen tests.
and if you're not involved in some community thing and you find Al Simmons on there, it's maybe you just had a pen test from TJ.
So.
I just noticed that. I was a big Spawn fan. Also, it's actually one of the first comics I got into back when I got into comics. It was right when it was coming out, and I still have the first 18 issues.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have. I just finished getting my whole collection for the 300 series, and I have a C2 framework that I've written that's based off of Spawn's evil villain Urizen as well too. That I don't know if I want to publish or not. That's still something I've wanted to look into further doing, but it is a great comic for people who like comics, right? Go check that out. Go check out Spawn.
Yeah, definitely. TJ, thank you so much for joining us on Security Weekly. And to learn more about offensive security, you can go to securityweekly.com/OFFSEC, OFFSEC.